Hello and welcome to another We Interview video here on Gamingtrend.com. My name is Adam Marino, and today we have a chance to talk to an absolute legend in the writing sphere and champion of Jackson, known for everything from Star Wars The High Republic, Titans United, Crypt of Shadows, Doctor Who, and one of his most recent, Gwenpool 2025. We have Cavan Scott!
Hey, thanks for having me along.
Welcome and thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it greatly.
No, it's great. It's really good to be here.
Wanted to let everybody know you're actually one of my favorite writers when it comes to
Oh,
comics. I've been very excited to have this on the books for a little while. But let's jump into it. First of
sure.
all, you've successfully worked with some of the biggest characters in comics, from Venom to
hmm
Nightwing to Yoda to Avar Kriss to the Doctor and the Ghostbusters. What is the biggest challenge for you when it comes to writing characters who are well known or joining a well known universe?
It's a tough one, really, because there's so many. I mean, first of all, you want to make sure it sounds like that universe. It's that balance of trying to do something new, but also something that is authentic within that world or that galaxy. Um, and me being me, and being a fan of most of this stuff since I was, knee high to an Ewok. My gut reaction is to try and make something fit in as much as possible, and slam in the Easter eggs and trying to, especially when I was started out on Doctor Who, my task always seemed to be then in my own head was to make it feel like if I was writing a past Doctor, it would feel like their era completely, like someone has dug up a lost episode that was never put on the BBC. As time gone by, I realised that perhaps isn't always the best thing to do, because you have to balance again that urge to be authentic to an era or to a character or to a universe to with also the need to do something new. And so that's a balancing act that you have to really, really, really navigate, and it's something that I struggle with to this day. 25 years into this job, it's still something I have to sit there and really think about. Obviously, I feel a great deal of responsibility for whatever universe I'm in at that time. I know what it's like to be a fan first and foremost, and I know what it's like to be disappointed when something doesn't go the way you think. But I also know on the flip side what it is to be a writer who has to tell a story that's true to them, and also majority of the time tell a story that fits the brief you've been given to write that story. So yeah, it's generally a juggling act, but it's a juggling act I love because I have been a fan of these things all my life. I was a comic fan as soon as I could read, before anything else. You know, Doctor Who, Transformers, Star Wars, all these. I mean, they're more than franchises to me. They literally were my childhood. And so yeah, it's a great responsibility and a great joy.
That's wonderful. And you probably can tell I'm a huge Star Wars fan
hmm
and have followed the High Republic specifically since the beginning announcements and the live stream that you guys did with the original writers from Phase
Yes.
One.
Yeah.
How have you enjoyed seeing the success of that era to a point that you now have not only comics, novels, TV shows, action figures, and like cosplay, all representing an era that you worked so intensely from the very beginning?
It's bananas, to be fair. It's just it feels ridiculous in an odd way because again, I think it was you mentioned that first stream we did, and of course we launched the High Republic in a very odd time, for everyone in the middle of pandemic. We did the official announcement in Burbank in LA about a week or two before lockdowns happened around the world. I mean, I was literally trying to work out if I was going to get home at one point after that event. So yeah, it was such a bizarre launch. From working out how to launch a project, the fact that I think that actually helped in a crazy kind of way. It gave a lot of people, ourselves included, something to latch onto during a very, dark and troubling time. It gave us light and life, to coin a phrase. and so yeah, to now be at the other end of that, and it's a weird thing because the High Republic, that sort of first, we can't call it the first phase because there was phase one. That the first initiative within the High Republic, and the one I was involved with has now come to an end. I mean, we're a month on from the last issue, just about. So it's a really strange thing to sort of step back and go, we did it. And I think now I feel more of a sense of relief that we actually got to the end, and it grew so fast, and it grew beyond what we thought it was going to be. I mean, just beyond the initial stories in the novels, the comics. Audio dramas weren't a thing right at the beginning. It was mainly just comics and novels, and then audio dramas were added, and then more graphic novels were added, and then there was two TV shows, and there were games, and it was everything that Star Wars does. The fact that we managed to steer the ship through that, and it has a lot to do with Michael Seglain, who's the creative publishing director at Lucasfilm, because it was his vision from the off. It was he was campaigning for, as soon as he got that job at Lucasfilm, to do something like the High Republic, and he steered us through it all. And there have been many, many challenges on the way, from a global pandemic to changes in publishing to changes in how entertainment works. And we've got to the end, and people, I am so grateful for those people who stuck with us all the way through, who invested their time. The fandom in the High Republic has just been a joy from beginning to end. It's we put so much out, and they stuck with it. And the great thing is there's people still discovering it now, and that's the wonderful thing about Star Wars, is that just because the initiative has finished in its initial run, people are discovering it. I keep getting people coming up to me and talking about they've just read The Rising Storm, or Beyond Charles's novel, The Light of the Jedi, before that, and they're just starting on that journey. So yeah, it's so gratifying and so humbling. And yeah, there's a great sense of relief of, oh, we did it. We got through. We didn't kill each other. We didn't kill anyone else. Um, and we made it to the end, because you don't know when you start something, especially something as ambitious and big as that. I mean, I can't remember the stat off the top of my head, but over 20 novels, 130 odd comics, and all the things that, the PR machine's been reeling off. But again, it's incredible to think that we put out that much content in such a short space of time. And largely, touch wood, it all hangs together. I'm sure there's some things when I go back and read it now, I'll go, oh yeah, that's interesting. But we had a plan, we stuck with it, and we seem to have landed and yeah, got through to the end. So yeah, it's been amazing. It's been a journey in every sense of the word.
I'll share a little anecdote with you, just from fan to writer.
Yeah,
When you guys announced the High Republic, there was artwork that was showcased, and I've got
yeah,
a book right there that has some of the original artwork. And during that live stream, I remember very vividly two characters that or three characters that really hit into my mind: Vernestra Rowe,
mm,
Buriaga, and Avar Chris. And each of them, we knew nothing about them as
mm,
fans. We knew nothing about this era. It was a time period that nobody had really done anything with Star Wars before. I've been a fan since I was a kid. I read all the Old Republic. I've read the
yeah,
Legends, New Republic, all that kind of stuff. So I was sitting there going like, well, what are they gonna do? And then you guys showcased all of this art, all of this stuff. They were giving out patterns for cosplay people to make their own outfits from that time period. And I picked Vernestra and Buriaga to be
right,
my little icons for my when I was streaming a lot. And it was
right.
before any of the books came out. It was before any of the comics came out, before any of these characters were actually. And I was just sitting there going, please let these characters be good, because I have put time and effort into backing them from the very beginning. And they ended up being amazing. And people that can maybe see my High Republic #1 right there, having Avar Chris be such a special character from the very beginning in so many different avenues, from comics to novels, and then being talked about in other
Mm,
stuff such as the shows. it's just such a testament to how well you guys worked as a group, you and Daniel, Jose Older, and everybody else that worked on that project from the very beginning. It's such a testament to you guys and the work that you guys did to with all the noise that was happening around you.
Oh, and
Not
there was a lot
only,
of
and
noise.
there was a
There was
lot
a
of
lot
noise.
of noise.
As somebody
Yeah.
that did Star Wars content about the High Republic, there was a lot of noise. And I'm so grateful that we've gotten to the ability to say like, oh, well, things are ending, and the High Republic will always live on. And we're getting new content all the time still. But this era of the High Republic, especially as somebody that focused on the comic side of things the most,
Mm.
reading that last comic, it's just there's an era happening. So I just wanted to thank you.
No,
Little
oh,
subplot
that's
there.
that's so lovely to hear. Thank you. And it's funny because looking back now on those initial bits of artwork we put out and initial sort of like paragraphs about each character, and in some ways they were the bane of our lives, and in some ways they were a complete joy. They were the bane in our lives because people took those paragraphs and spent so much time looking at those sort of like four lines, and making judgments and all those kind of things, which some people still haven't gone beyond those four lines. And there was Ava in particular. There was all this stuff about she was, the best Jedi and the light of the Jedi and all those kind of things. And we all knew her story was a lot more complicated to that.
Yeah.
And what at that point for the galaxy, she was the pinnacle of the Jedi. Whether she was going to always follow that path, we knew exactly where she was going, and how that path would be rocky along the way. But of course, you had either people who, but that's also part of the fun of it, because I've been on the other side of that. And you mentioned all the legend, or EU as I like to call them, stories of old. You know, I felt like I was standing on the shoulders of giants, or, just clambering up to those shoulders, whether I was worthy of standing on them or not. Because I remember what it was like to see covers and to see characters and sort of to come up with all the theories. I mean, I say that as if I don't do it now, but I do it on every one of my fandoms. Something comes out and I start making up stories. So it's interesting to see it from the other side, because it can be really frustrating. But at the same time, what a what an honor that people will spend that time arguing and theorizing about, characters you've come up with. And yeah, I think I look back on that period of time with all the videos and all the stuff and that blessed whiteboard. But I have a picture of that whiteboard fully filled out as well, which I'd love to release, because it would, I mean, though
Yeah.
there have been more hours spent on that whiteboard analyzing it than we spent writing it. But that was only like halfway through the process, the quarter of the way through the process. Those lists got scribbled over and crossed out and circled, and everyone treats it as if it's gospel. And that's again part of the interesting thing of launching all this in a period of time where the internet, and obviously we'd had social media for a while, but this was the first time I've been involved in something of this size, that was, by its very nature and by the fact that the world had stopped for a while because of a pandemic, everything was being analyzed to the nth degree. So it's really interesting. And yeah, I still have, at least once a week, I hear the word whiteboard and have a little shudder, and also have a laugh, because I know what else is on it. And I know that some people that will be joy, and for some people it would be a complete nightmare, but give them many more hours of content. Perhaps one day we'll put it out there. But yeah, it was a very interesting time to, and it was tough at times, but it was largely, on the whole, it was exciting. And then you just thought, oh, actually, we've got to do this thing now. From those early streams and that. I mean, we'd pretty much written the first wave of things back then. But yeah, it was just the beginning. So we suddenly realized that it was going to be much bigger than we thought it was going to be. And so, yeah, that put a lot of pressure on it. But pressure's a good thing.
You got there in the end,
Got
and
there in the end.
the fan base. I love the High Republic fan base. It is a nice little pocket
It really
inside
is.
a much
Yeah.
bigger world.
Yeah.
I could keep talking about Star Wars with you for
Mm.
days and weeks on end, but
Yeah.
one of your current projects is Gwenpool
Hmm.
2025, in which our
Hmm.
audience can actually see an impressions video of the issue number one starting this week that we're filming this. I
All right.
just finished recording it earlier today. How have you enjoyed working with the Pool family and everything that comes with that? I've really enjoyed the fourth wall breaks that you've done, the way in which she interacts with the audience and kind of tries to pull in the other characters to understanding that this is bigger than them, but they just don't get it. And how has that been for you, the experience?
It's been interesting. I mean, talk about going from one passionate fan base to another. I mean, there's a lot of passionate Gwenpool fans, and I know I've probably annoyed quite a few of them. And on the other side, I've probably, pleased a few more. Um, Yeah, it's been a really interesting book to write, mainly because of the Fourth World War breaking stuff, which seems completely natural to me as a Brit. Because when we were all growing up in the 70s and 80s, reading British comics, the tradition is that they were traditionally humor comics, and traditionally the characters all talk to the audience, they all talk to the readers, and you'd even have the reader's voice as a little off-panel balloon with an arrow saying reader's voice. So I grew up with comic characters breaking the fourth wall left, right, and center. Um, and the main sort of like the main comic was called the Beano, which is the only one of these humor comics that still exists. And it was one of my first real comic jobs was writing for the Beano and for these characters. For a character called Banana Man, the Man of Peel, who is a parody on superheroes, and who's incredibly challenged in so many ways. He doesn't get things right a lot of the time, and the reader lets him know it. So I've had a lot of experience with this. So it's been weird. So I sort of trained myself not to do that anymore. And then with Gwenpool, we're right back in there. With this current run, actually, there's not been a lot of her talking directly to the audience, because there were so many things to do on this book. The list I was given, when I came on board, because that's the interesting thing. A lot of time with these jobs is that Gwenpool was a book that was brought to me, as something that I like to come on board and do, and with that there was a shopping list of types saying, we want this book to do this. Here is the character of Dark Gwenpool, who's in this book, this version of Dark Gwenpool, the Gwen Stacy character was, delivered to me as part of the brief. So it was lots of different things I had to do, lots of different reasons for it existing. And so I had to try and do that and also, put together a story. So we didn't have a lot of time for Gwenpool talking to the audience. I would have liked to on more, but then I think I would have been on like 10 issues instead of five. But yeah, it's been the team itself, has been brilliant. The art is I've loved every minute of throwing out these ideas and seeing what's come back from Stefano. Um, yeah, it's been a really really interesting experience. We've got one issue to go as we're recording this, and I hope again that the landing comes in well. There's a lot of questions I think people are asking about this book, about what's happening, why Gwen is being handled in a certain way, why she's acting in a certain way, and that all becomes clear on issue five, which I am sure will infuriate some people and hopefully please a lot more. But yeah, I've had a ball. I mean, the greatest moment for me was Chris and Heather, the two original creators of Gwenpool, both gave me the thumbs up for the series when they read the first few issues. I've known Heather a long time. I only know Chris because I adore that run. And I think that run is a perfect run of a book, to be honest, the original Gwenpool run. But yeah, when they both came back and said that they enjoyed it, for me, that was okay, I can relax now. Because again, put a book out into the world and that's all you can do. You put it out there and you can't control how people react to it or like it or don't like it and not everyone can like everything. But yeah, on the whole, it's been a blast from beginning to an end, and a lot of fun, and give me a chance to do things that I don't have a chance to do in other stories because you can only do them in a Gwenpool book.
That's very true. And I've only read issue number one so far, but it's
Hmm.
been a lot of fun and the artwork is fantastic. So kudos to the entire team, and I can't wait to read
Yes,
the rest of
thank
them.
you.
You're actually you're one of the most open writers actually that I followed on social media with your weekly newsletters, with informative things about what you've got going on, but also guest writers that
Hmm.
come on and talk about their favorite things when it comes to
Mm.
books and comics and music and
Yeah,
TV and movies. Why was it important for you to show readers more of the process and some of the mental hurdles that you go through as a writer?
because we don't talk about it. I mean, that's and I know why we don't talk about it because at the end of the day, the majority of us who work in this, especially in comics, we're freelancers. And you come in and you do a gig and then you move on to another gig, hopefully. And you have to be, you have to be good at your job, you have to be reliable, um, and you have to work at a certain pace. And what there's still, I think, in 2025, perhaps more recently, I don't know, a fear that if you say that something's a struggle, people won't come back to you. And I think a lot of us, when we all get together as creators, we all sit there and we swap war stories, and you're a bit more honest. But perhaps you don't do it on the public arena for that reason, because you don't want people to look at that person and go, well, that they're not coping, therefore, they can't cope with this business. And it can be a tough business, and it can be a tough business from just the sheer pace of work to dealing with fans and to dealing with online and stuff. Emails arriving, all times of day and night to tell you A, how wonderful you are, or B, how terrible you are. And both can be hard to cope with in different ways in a really odd kind of sense. Um, and so yeah, I have in the past struggled with, mental issues that are very much linked to my job. But my job is what I do, and the job is so much based on my how I grew up, the things I love, that I can't sort of see the beginning and end of it. It's all rolled up together on one big ball. So I talk about it all as far as I can, as far as I can be honest about it, because I think that we need people to be honest about it because when you come into this business, there's no one really to tell you how to do it. There's no one really. There are plenty of people who will mentor people or take people under the wing, but everyone is so working so hard in comics to get comics done that sometimes it gets lost along the way. And you think you have to act in a certain way. You think you have to put up a certain persona. You have to you have to act in a way that you're totally on top of things all the time. You can do everything that's thrown at you, which most of us can. But it can be difficult at times. So people come into the industry, and I didn't know what it was like. I didn't know how to cope with people online. I didn't know how to cope with the churn of the industry and working within the group. I didn't know how to, know how to work with other members of the team. I had to learn it. And I think if I can help a few people understand what it's like, whether that's people who want to come into the business, or actually readers, because readers and creators in comics are so linked because we're all here because we're fans. I mean, there's not many people who've got a career in comics because they ticked a thing on a careers day at school. I can be a doctor, I can be a farmer, or I can be a comic writer. It's they're there because they love this medium, um, and that would bring certain preconceptions, and sometimes it can be hard. You see it for other people, especially in a world where social media is such a big part of it. You sort of see things and you wince sometimes when you see people making the same mistake you've made 1,000 times. So, or just struggling on a day when things are hard. So yeah, for good or ill, I've decided to be a little bit more open, hopefully at times. I mean, there's still times I don't. There's times I just go, I'm just going to hide under my desk. And sometimes I put something out and I go, should I have said that? Was that a good thing to say? But it's out there then, so I can't, like comics. Once an issue's out, you can't do anything about it. Once you've put something out there into the ether, it's out there in the ether. So yeah, I think it's important, and I think I wish we could all be a little bit more open and honest about every part of the job, whether that's the commissioning process, the writing process, but just the being in this industry, because it can turn people up and it can chew them up. So yeah, I think it's good for everyone to know, hopefully. And people aren't sick of me yet, so hopefully it's working.
I think you do a great job of balancing boundaries. It's really easy for those things to overwhelm you in social media because there's so much of it. But I remember you making a statement a while back of just like, hey, I'm not really going to be active on these other platforms nearly as much. There's going to be stuff that's going to come out, but like this is really where I'm going to be. And it's really been a great thing to see because when you have a boundary like that, people know if they follow you and they like you and want to be a part of that, they know where to find you. But also, if you don't want to be found, you don't have to get
Well,
it.
that's the
Like,
thing. There's always the feeling that you have to be online. You have to tell everything. You have to, and most of the stuff I post is usually I bought a new action figure and things like that, or I've read this book and isn't it great, or I really like this old film. Um, and I spend a lot of time, and I really like threw myself into Twitter when Twitter started. I was an early adopter. I was an early adopter on Facebook. I mean, I am on neither Facebook or Twitter now, and for very good reasons. And so, yeah, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Blue Sky, but I don't. I've fought that urge to just put everything on there, and it's something. It goes in peaks and troughs, but that's why, I try to pin a Q and A AMA thing on the top of all my feeds. So if someone does want to come and ask a question, they can come and ask me. My newsletter is probably the best place to find me and ask questions on that. It's funny, you quite often see people screaming online, but he never does AMAs, he never does interviews. And I was like, you can just come and ask me. And if I want to answer, I'll answer it. It's not, you haven't got to wait. I mean, if anything comic tells you, you haven't got to wait for anything. You can just do something. Whether you'll get the answer you want back, well, it depends. And again, as a writer, you want to be able to answer everything. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you literally legally can't. Other
yeah.
times it's a wait and see because I can't tell you that because, it's going to relate to a story. And other times you just haven't got the energy for it because this is the biggest thing is that as a creator, I have been guilty in the past of forgetting that social media isn't my job. My job is writing the words to go into books or comics or TV shows or all those kind of things. That's where my energy needs to be. So if I have excess energy that I can put a little bit online, brilliant. If I can't, I just have to stick to the job at hand, which is still telling those stories. Um, and there's a real pressure to be out there and to be available and to be, again, to have that thing where the emails can arrive whenever and there'll be expect to be an answer. With the emails arrive, I have a lovely assistant who helps me by filtering and answering some people. Most of the stuff I see, I know for a fact they keep some stuff that I don't because it's horrible. But yeah, I mean, we all need boundaries, especially in this world where we're supposed to be on and available, and those boundaries go through professionally as well too. There is a certain point at the time of the night where I will switch off, and I won't answer emails, and because again, as you can tell from the accent, I'm Brit. I live in England. I work primarily with people on the east and west coast of the States, and so there are points where I can't be online anymore. So it's an industry that's fast moving. It's an industry that expects you to react really quickly, and sometimes you just can't. And yeah, I think it's important to say that I can't do that.
And I appreciate you being so honest with us and talking about all of this. Well, we have one more question, and it's a question
Okay.
that we always end on the show, and that is, what is one happy memory in your time working in your industry that will always stay with you as a happy memory?
Oh, there are so many. There are so many, but I think one of them, and I don't think I've talked about this before. Um, So people who know me that I will mention Doctor Who. I've done really well. I mean, you mentioned the Doctor, but I don't think I've mentioned Doctor Who that much. It's a joke in meetings that they time it to see how long before I go. Well, in Doctor Who, but so Doctor Who was my one of my first ever fandoms. It's the one that I got my first break in and all those kind of things. And I think it for me was I was at the 50th anniversary convention in London for Doctor Who. I was one of the hosts on one of the stages, which was amazing. We did so many cool things that weekend. And my two daughters came up when they were very young, and they were both Doctor Who fans. My youngest, not so much because she was a little bit younger. My eldest definitely was a Doctor Who fan by that point. And they got to come into the green room with me. And there were so many moments. I'd worked with the people that I'd grew up watching, and I could introduce them as my daughters to, to the Seventh Doctor, to Ace, to all these people that, that meant a lot to me professionally and also as a fan. And I introduced Chloe to John Leeson, who is the voice of K9. And again, the other thing is anyone who knows me knows how much I love K9. And John immediately went into K9 voice, which I can't do, and go, "Oh, Mistress Chloe," and had a conversation with her. And for just that moment, seeing the look on her face, hearing John doing K9, and being there for that weekend and it being such an emotional time for being a Doctor Who fan and someone who worked in that on that show as well, it was all sort of like summed up in that moment of just my daughter, well, actually both of them because both of them were there, but Connie, my youngest, was too shy to talk. Both of them being with someone who was literally my hero when I was growing up. I mean, Tom Baker was my hero, but I
Mhm.
watched the show because of K9 probably more often than not. So yeah, that's one of the moments that I will always be grateful for because there have been so many moments like that that have put me in a situation I never would have dreamt of when I was the age Chloe was then.
Yeah.
And so now, and now she's moved in, she's at drama school. My youngest, Connie, is doing theatrical makeup. And it's
Oh,
all from seeing this world that, that I've
yeah.
loved all my life. And trust me, I have not pushed them into doing this at all. I have advised them in many cases that they might want to think of other things, but they want to follow the creative path. And it is absolutely because of people like John who are wizards that that weave magic around them and that they want to be part of that. So yeah, that's probably one of the moments that means the most to me.
That's such a special story. Thank you so much for sharing it. And we just want to thank you so much for your time and telling us so much about everything you have going on. Gwenpool being the most recent, but make sure you guys are reading the entirety of the High Republic. It's all out now. You can
It
read
is.
all of it. You can read all of the comics. But thank you so much for your time. Where can people
Thank you.
find you?
It's probably best to. We talked about my newsletter. That's probably the best place to
Yep.
go. So everything will end. All roads lead to the newsletter.
I'll get
So
it
it's
linked in there.
www.cavletter.com. That's probably the best place to find me.
I thank you so
Thank you.
much.